All right, well, good morning and welcome to Vision Church. If I haven't met you before, my name is Matt Vanderbilt, and you are here on a very special day in the life of our church. Because what you saw up on the screen, all those things that have happened, and we have not even launched as a church yet. That happens 2 weeks from today. We are so excited that God has kept us on a timetable that has challenged us and also has really shown us His amazing strength, the miracles He's done. And I'm going to tell you this morning about some miracles we saw even this week in our church. But today what we're doing, something kind of different. We're calling it Ownership Class. And you may say, Matt, it's my first day here. And I'm like, you know what? This is a great day to be here because you're going to hear about what we've seen God do up to this point in Vision and kind of our vision truly for the future of what He is going to do in us and through us. And at the end of today, you'll have a chance to sign some things and say, you know what? I'm ready to be an owner at Vision. Or you may say, you know what, honestly, my next step is just to come back next week. Or maybe my next step is to start serving or bring somebody to Vision. So we've all got different next steps in our walk. But today in our ownership class, I want you to hear what this church is about. And if anything, hopefully it will inspire you in your walk to take a next faith step. All right, so if you would, let's bow together and let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for Proverbs 29:18 that says, God, where there is no vision, the people will perish. And I thank you that, God, true, meaningful vision comes from you. And you have it for each person in this room. You have a vision for what you want to do in our lives. And God, you got a vision for what you want to do in this community. So we thank you for inviting us to come along on the journey with you. I pray for this morning even that you'd speak to each of us, help us see what our next faith step is, teach us and inspire us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, when you look in the Bible, I tell you, my second favorite character in the Bible is a guy named Joshua. I mean, number one definitely is the Son of God. Because when you read about Jesus and realize that we have a Savior, nobody else can trump that. But when I look throughout the Bible, my second favorite character in the Bible, and I don't know if we got something going on back there in the ping pong room, but maybe someone go check that out. We're definitely relaxed here at Vision, but we can't have air hockey going on in church. But anyways, Joshua is a guy that has actually a whole book of the Bible named after him, his story. So let me give you kind of the backstory on Joshua. It actually starts way back in Exodus 17. Because if you realize the history of Israel, these guys were in slavery. They were in captivity in Egypt to where they were literally called beasts of burden. It meant that there was a burden on them that their whole life revolved around just being slaves to the Egyptians. So they were in this cycle of slavery that looked like they would have no hope. And God raised up a leader called Moses, who did some amazing faith steps of his own to lead them out of Egypt. Now Joshua, this whole time, had been a slave, and he had followed along with Moses. And in fact, he was almost kind of mentored by Moses. So when they came out of Egypt and went up to the Red Sea and thought, there's either death behind us or drowning in front of us, and they walked forward, and God parted the Red Sea, and they went through. They went to the desert, they did some wandering, they came up to what was called the Promised Land on the other side of the Jordan River. And that goes all the way back to Abraham. If you read early in the Bible about Abraham, and God had said to him, I promise you this land out here for your descendants. So basically, Joshua, Moses, and all the people of Israel came up to the Jordan River, to the Promised Land. And if you remember the story, they sent 12 spies into it. And Joshua was one of those 12. They went in and scouted out the land. And Joshua and his buddy Caleb were like, this is incredible. God is going to give us this land. They came back and reported their story, along with the other 10 spies. So the 12 of them, they say to Moses and to Israel, we're ready to take it. Well, 10 of them said, no, actually, we can't do this. It's too big. And Moses had to make a decision. He said, you know what? We're going to have to turn away. And they turned back to the desert. I mean, you imagine that after all they've been through in slavery and seeing God deliver them, that they got out of it, and then they turned back to the desert. So they go wandering for 40 years. And in fact, everybody over the age of about 20 died in the desert, besides Joshua and Caleb. Moses gets to the end of his leadership role, and he dies, and God says, Joshua, it's your time to lead. And they head back, and they come back to the exact same place. There's the Jordan River again. And they look across it, and they see the Promised Land. They send spies in again. They come back, and Joshua collects the information and says, guys, now is our time. And we have a choice to make. So when we look in the book of Joshua, in chapter 3, Joshua has what I call his Jordan River moment. Now, we'll come back to that in a couple minutes, but I want you to be thinking about Joshua and what he must have felt like standing at the Jordan River, waiting on God to do something amazing. Now, if you would, pull out what you came today. And actually, if we can even see if anybody is lacking what we call our owner's manual. This owner's manual, we want everybody to have one. I think we got enough for everybody in the room, every age. Because I tell you, when we were out here yesterday painting, and the person who comes to my mind, let's see, where's Julian at? Julian Hill. Julian yesterday is over there slinging paint. Julian, how old are you?
9.
He's 9. Okay, so he's over there slinging paint, working hard. And you know, in our church, we're not going to have people that are members. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to have people that are owners. And I looked at Julian, I thought, you know what? Certainly he is a part of the Hill family, but you know what? He is an owner of Vision Church. So in fact, I want to make sure that Julian's got one. Julian, make sure you got one. Owner's manual and a covenant and a pen. So make sure everybody in the room has one of those. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go through this in just a moment after I kind of give you a little backstory of my own and a backstory of Vision. Because my story began up in Michigan, and God kind of shaped me up in those cold, harsh winters. And by the time I got to be 18, I said, this is my chance to go somewhere warm. So I headed down south, found me a Southern Belle. And I got married, stayed down here. But in 1991, when I come down here, a friend of mine walked me through the book of Acts and showed me, man, that these people were different after they experienced God's Holy Spirit in them. I said, I don't have that. And so I came to Christ in the summer of 91 and started to walk with Jesus. Now, that took me through UNC Charlotte, where I found my Southern Belle, and then we moved to Boone, which was crazy because I'd left the cold, and here I was going back to Boone, saying, God, what are you doing? But you know what? God was shaping me, teaching me things. We moved back to Gaston County. I worked at Belmont Parks and Rec and was liking what I was doing, and then I started going to a church, and God called me to go on staff, which was just crazy because I had never, ever thought about being a pastor. I said, I don't want to wear ties. I'm not comfortable speaking in front of people. I don't know these funerals and weddings and hospital stuff. And God just said, don't worry about all that. Just be obedient. And so I did. I came on staff at Bethlehem Church, and God shaped me over the years to where truly I felt so much more comfortable being a pastor, literally being a shepherd of people to help them move in their journey. So about a year and a half ago, God was doing something in my life. And there was such almost a restlessness in me that I was not doing exactly what he wanted me to do. And I went and met with a guy over in Charlotte who was a pastor. And I came home that day, and I will never be the same. It was a Thursday. And I remember on Friday morning, I dropped my kids off at Cramerton Middle, and I stopped in the drugstore down there and picked up a notebook and said, you know what? I need to start writing down what I'm experiencing. And on May 31st of 2013, I said, I believe yesterday was a landmark day in my journey in life. I really feel like God has opened the door for me to leave where I'm at. And in fact, God, you led me to meet Chris Brown over at Ridge Church in Charlotte. And what was intended for 60 minutes turned into 3 hours. And I really feel like you were talking to me about starting a church. And I tell you, it was so radical because I thought, man, I'm not qualified to lead a church. I feel like I can lead people, but I'm like, really? A whole church and preaching and all that comes with being a lead pastor? And over the next months, I wrote so much in here that actually I filled up this book and I opened up another one. And I'm on my second journal about this church. And as I went through this journey of trying to figure out how God wanted to use, how God wanted to use me in a role like this, you know, there's so much refining that goes on in the struggle. I want to encourage you in your faith journey, wherever you're at, don't ask God to microwave your faith growth, because it has to go in His timing and His way, because in that refining, He shapes and chisels you to where it's so neat. Almost exactly a year ago from our launch date. Our launch date will be January 25th. On January 27th last year, I went in and resigned my position and said, you know what? God's calling me to step out and to be a lead pastor. And so a year later, here we are, opening Vision. And back then, that night, me and Meg sat down with our kids and looked around and said, there's just 5 of us. We don't know how God's going to do it. We don't know how God's going to pay for it. We don't know how God's going to bring people or facilities or anything. But you know what? This journey that we've been on, where he took us from one family to another family, and another family asked, and 3 other families asked, and we had 6. And then we had an event, and 3 more families came on, and some others moved into town, and they joined us, and some others came in from Kentucky and Raleigh and D.C. and all these different places that God's kept building this up to where we then got looking at this building and said, okay, God, is our faith step to move in something like this? And we moved in it, and you saw those pictures up there. It didn't look anything like this. It had, a boxing ring and all these heavy bags and mirrors up here, and it smelled like kids' feet and all this stuff. And we said, okay, God, if you want to use this, and if you want us to take that faith step, we'll take it. So September 1st, we started a lease on this building. And we came in and started meeting every other week and growing as families and growing as friends. And we started, putting up paint. And even this week, we got a door on the bathroom. We are so excited about that, ladies. So piece by piece, God's doing this. And in fact, even this week, I did want to tell you a couple God stories on it, because we're in this room here. And if you remember, this ductwork right here, as recently as I think 2 weeks ago, it was right here, and it was silver. Well, we got a friend of ours to move it for free. We got people in our church to dismantle parts of that for free. And this week, a guy came in and said, you know what? You could paint that, paint these walls. He said, I'll donate this room. I'll paint all that for you for free. And poof, it was done. And then we get in the hallway, and there's kids out there slinging paint, and we're building environments, and things are happening, and trees are popping up. And I'm like, wait a second. What is happening in this building? And if you walked in for the first time today, you're like, man, this looks pretty good. And we're like, man, you should have seen it a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. You should have smelled the feet. And God is just shaping us in this journey. So as we come in today, and you have Joshua's backstory, and you kind of have my backstory, and I've kind of heard Vision's backstory, I want to talk about where we're going. So if you would, open up what we're calling your owner's manual. And again, if it's your first time, or you're like, man, I'm not ready to be an owner or something, that's okay. Just learn about Vision today and figure out what maybe your next step is wherever you're at or wherever God takes you. So as we open this up and look, we talk about ownership. Look at these first couple phrases with me. It says, a healthy spiritual life is marked by a series of next steps. And I tell you, the great thing about Jesus, he is not asking us to say, like, if I'm trying to get to that microphone, and he says, Matt, you got to jump from here to get to that microphone. And you guys are like, no way. Maybe when I was 20, I could get about halfway there. Now I can get about this way. God says, wait a second. Let me show you your next step. It's going to be easy. It's going to be obvious. It's going to be strategic. And once you try to take it, I'm going to grow you. So it may be easy to see it, not always easy to take it. God's like, next step, next step, next step, next step. You've gotten to where I want you to be. You know what God does then? He'll say, okay, I want to take you somewhere else. He'll take you somewhere else. So it's all about next steps. Jesus was consistently challenging his followers to take next steps, and the same is true here at Vision. I never want to hear somebody say, at Vision, they don't know where they're going, or at Vision, I don't know where I can be going. So I'm telling you, we're making it clear where we're going, and we want to make it as clear as possible, next steps that you can take. So making a commitment to ownership at Vision Church means you're ready to be a part of building something, not just attending something. And that's when I think about Julian Hill over there. He came in yesterday to build something. He did. He didn't come in here just to watch something. He came in here to build something. So, first blanks. Members have rights. So, remember the first thing I said? We don't have any members. This isn't country club. This isn't health club. We don't have members. Owners have responsibilities. Responsibilities. I mean, you think about if you go in that health club and you're on the treadmill and something breaks on it, if you're a member, you say, hey, can somebody get over here and fix this? You know what? If you're an owner, you say, hey, where are the tools at? Let's get underneath this thing. Let's figure out how to fix it. And there's a totally different experience there. Now, all owners at Vision need to understand and agree that it's, number one, it's not about me. So actually, everybody say that. It's not about me. Okay, because that's where I'm starting for me, saying it's not about me. Cool thing is, we as a church are all about Jesus. Okay, we're all about him. Because when it comes to eternity and needing someone or something that can save us from an eternity apart from God, honestly, I don't have anything to offer. You don't have anything to offer. Jesus is the only one who has something to offer that has eternal, lasting value. So it's all about him. Two things about Jesus. Number one, he's the only way to heaven. Tell you, in your workplace, if you want to raise some eyebrows and cause some tension, open up to John chapter 14 and read verse 6. When Jesus says, I'm the way and the truth and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through me. Because people say, wait a second, that's so narrow. That's how can you think that way, that you got it all figured out? So honestly, I don't have it all figured out. I'm trying to understand this book more and more, but you know what? When I see the guy in there who lived and died and rose from the grave and did miracles, and people have given their lives for 2,000 years for him, I said, I'm going with him. I'm going with what he says. So that's the first thing about him. He's the only way to heaven. The second thing is he changes people. You cannot have a relationship with Jesus, a true relationship with him, and not change. That's what he does in us. He changes us. So why does Vision Church exist? You will hear this almost weekly. So I want you as best you can to internalize it, that we exist to lead people to Christ and help them live out God's vision for their life. You say, man, I can't memorize long stuff. It's simple. We want you to be a part of leading people to Christ and helping them find God's vision for their life. You will hear that again and again. Hopefully, in fact, you'll hear it so often you say, Matt, we're tired of hearing that. Say, okay, then you probably got it. And that way, when you go to work on Monday and they say, man, why are you starting a new church? Why are you being a part of building something? Say, I don't have it all figured out, but you know what? We're just trying to lead people to Christ and help them live out God's vision for their life. There's a lot of other things to it, but you know what? At the core of it, that's who we are. And you know what? Back in July, tell me, who was here back in July when we had that Saturday night where we met in what's now called the Wall Ballroom? Who was here that Saturday night in July when we met? It's cool. And we passed out some bricks. Now these bricks, don't worry, you weren't supposed to bring yours today. You're okay. You're okay. But I brought mine because actually what we did is we took some bricks that day, and each family that was here, and I think we had about 20 families at that time, and each family took one of these because we're going to use these bricks in our lobby. When we clear all that stuff out, put some coffee and put some next step stuff out, some guest stuff out there, we're going to put some type of fireplace or brick deal that takes our bricks, and the families that are a part of Vision before we launch will bring their bricks, and we'll actually build that wall with those bricks. Now, the cool thing is you can take it home, and like Jacqueline's and taking hers up to school, and you put your name on it or whatever you want to put, so that when it's in your place where you live, people might see it and say, what is that about? And you tell them. Or your family might see it, and it reminds you to pray for Vision. But you know what? When it's time to build a lobby, we're going like that and sticking them on the wall. So I'll remember kind of what ours looks like, but you know what? It's not about us. It's not about Vanderbilt. It's not. We're just a brick in the wall, and God's going to build it on that. So part of today, your opportunity, if you say, yeah, we want to be an owner, when we finish up today and you do some other things, you can actually come up here and take one of these to your home. One per family if you don't have one yet, if you want to be an owner. And now again, there's no pressure today at all, because I am not trying to inspire you into what we're doing, because what we're doing is hard. But for us, for me and my house, we've had this in our house since July, and I'm taking it back home today, but we're going to bring those things back sometime this spring as we're doing renovations. Those bricks are going in there. All right, page 2. Our values and our next steps. All of what we do is founded on Jesus. So to be an owner at Vision, it requires belief in Jesus Christ and a commitment to follow him the rest of your life. So you know what? It's great if you love the atmosphere of Vision and say, man, that's some friendly people, and I like the colors, and it looks like Panthers, and now they lost. I got to find some other Panthers colors to wear. And who else stayed up? Faithful fans stayed a pretty good amount. But anyways, we got these color, good-looking shirts and good-looking facility, and you're like, man, that could be fun. Okay, the cut line, though, is you have to agree with who we say Jesus is. And again, we're not trying to be narrow. We're just being very precise in saying Jesus is the only way to heaven. Jesus is one that we could believe in and commit our lives to, and we're going to live his way. Like it says in the Bible, we're not going to be perfect, but you know what? We're going to try to imitate him. So that is the first part of saying whether you want to be an owner at Vision or not is this next step. Maybe you need to pray to accept Christ. Because if you're here today and you've never accepted Christ, man, when we finish up and we pray, I would love for you to silently pray with me and to accept Christ. Second part of it, maybe you haven't been baptized. And I'm talking since you were saved, full body immersion baptized, and we could unpack that in a whole message. But man, I tell you, when you see Jesus and the people in the New Testament baptizing people and it's symbolic of his resurrection, that's what we do here at Vision. We'll have our first one, I imagine, next couple months. So if you're like, yeah, man, I've been saved, I've been walking with God for 10 years, but I've never been baptized, then you know what? When you sign on your covenant today, I want you to mark on there. Say, I'll be ready to be baptized next time we have it. And we'll help you figure all that out. But that's the first piece of being a part of Vision, that you believe in Jesus, commit your life to him, accept salvation as a gift. All right, next thing. Growth is a natural part of following Jesus. Like I talk about, Jesus changes people. So that's growth. Healthy things are growing. I'll tell you, Vision, we got, I don't know, maybe 100, 120 people here today. If in a year we got 100, 120 people here today, something's not right. Because growing things, healthy things grow. They grow. We're not all about numbers, but the reality is every number has a name and every name has a story. And I tell you, that person sitting right there and that person sitting right there, your story matters to God. So we will be growing as an organization. And for you personally, your next steps in growth, consistent time with God, consistently getting here on Sundays so you can be in fellowship and hearing the word and worshiping together. So that's our first value, is that growth is a natural part of following Jesus. In fact, how many of you in here have kids ages high school or under? Who's got a kid here in high school or under? And that's me. I got 3 of them. All right. In our church, we believe in a process called Orange, which means there's a partnership where the church is yellow, like we shine the light of Christ. The family is red, which is love. And you put these 2 influences together, it makes orange. And so from birth all the way through high school, we're committed to a strategic growth process for your kids. We're not going to do it all. We're just going to invest in them here on Sundays and give you tools to invest in them the rest of the week so that this process, this partnership can truly help cause growth in your kids. All right, the next value, connect with others in relationships. Connecting with others in relationships. It's so important that you would not get in routines of just coming into Vision and leaving. You didn't talk to anybody. You didn't build some friendships, relationships. So some next steps on that, finding a group to be a part of. And then second, meeting people through serving. Now next week, we will start promoting our upcoming groups. We got a couple going on now, but most of them will launch in February. So we're excited about giving you opportunities to be in small groups in whatever age you are in. And in terms of serving, it's a great way to build relationships. Be alongside people, working with kids, or in a parking lot, or whatever role at our church, you get to meet people. That is such a vital part of what we're doing here at Vision. All right, third one, serve in a place you're passionate about. Now, the next steps on this, interesting, because as I prayed about this, about how I want to communicate this, number one is find a place where you love to serve. Because truly, when you get back there and you go into Camp Trailblazer and you're ministering to those kids and you come out and you're like, that was great, I had so much fun in those kids. That's a place you're passionate about. If you go and serve somewhere and you get done, you're like, oh man, I am flat worn out every time I do that. You know, that's probably not your right spot. And honestly, we don't want you in a spot that's not your right spot. So we'll help you find a place you're passionate about. And the second piece, though, is interesting because you know what? Watch for a place where you are needed to serve. Because you know what? There's going to be some times where we got to clean the floors. We got to move the chairs. We got to pick up trash in the parking lot. We got to paint or do something. You're like, you know what? I'm not really big on picking up trash. Well, you know what? The trash still needs to get picked up. And if you'd have seen yesterday, we were leaving here, the place was a wreck. And we had some people just picking up trash. And you know what? I don't think they were passionate about picking up trash. They just picked up trash. So there's going to be times when you're passionate to serve, and there's other times we just need you to serve. So that's my challenge to you. Now, I do want to introduce a couple of our leaders in student ministry, because when you serve and get involved in the lives of our students, it has a chance to truly alter the trajectory of their walk with God in their lives. So I've invited Wes Russell and Cassie Hill to come on up. Come on up. Okay. And tell us what is going on with our students, because there's some big stuff going on that you got to hear about today.
Okay, so starting off tonight at 6 o'clock, we have admission, which is from now on going to be every other Sunday night from 6 to 7:30, and it'll just be like a service for just the students. But yeah, so we have that tonight.
Next Sunday will be Winter Jam. Winter Jam is a giant Christian music concert. There will be 10,000 people there at least, and it's going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be $13. It's $10 to get in, so 10 bands for $10 is a pretty good deal. $3 for riding the train up to I forgot what the center's called. But what? The arena? Okay, it's gonna be at the arena, and so we're gonna all get everyone that's wanting to go. It's gonna be kind of like a small event, but everybody here next week that wants to go, we're gonna gather you up. We're going straight after church up to Charlotte, going to ride the train up to the arena, and then we're going to sit for several hours because we get a spot in line, and they don't sell reserved seating. So everybody that comes with us, we're gonna sit outside in the cold. So if you want lunch, I would bring lunch, because you can't get out of line to buy it. I have been there from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock when the doors open before. It is very cold, it is very hard, the ground is very rough, but it is very fun. So you will enjoy yourself when you come, I swear.
And then we have 180 Weekend, which is the weekend of January 30th. And the cost is $35, and if you want to come, we need you to sign up today. But what it is, it's a weekend where a lot of the students in Gaston County get together, and the middle schoolers are at one church and the high schoolers are at another, and it's at Parkwood and Bethlehem. I'm not sure which is which. But we just get together and we worship together, and we learn about Jesus together, and then at night we go back to our host homes, and we get to grow together as small groups and just learn and have fun, and you really learn a lot about each other, and you make some really good friends, and it's a lot of fun. So if you want to do that, the cost again is $35, and we need you to sign up today.
And by need to sign up today, what we mean is that you have to sign up by today because it's the deadline. So if you want to go, sign up today. But it really is a lot of fun. Like one year, my group went and played paintball for a weekend, and it was a ton of fun. And then sometimes we went swimming at midnight. It was freezing cold. It's a lot of fun. And there's also, there's a study that goes along with it. So you're in a small group of people your own age, but then there's also night services at the whatever church you're going to, whether it be middle school or high school. And it actually is an actual blast. It's not like a commitment. It's not a boring weekend or anything. It's a ton of fun. So I'll be missing it this year, which just pains me because it's my last year. But it's going to be great, I promise.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys. Appreciate all that information. All right. Well, here at Vision, we got a ton of great ministries. And in fact, what I want to do is give you a visual on a lot of these leaders, so that today, even as when we do wrap up, we'll have breakouts in some of our major areas, so you can go and meet some of these leaders and get information about serving. So what I like to do real quick, when I kind of identify your area and your name, if you would just stand up and stay standing so we can see these leaders. First of all, we have our elders, and our elders are men from our congregation that are kind of the rails that keep our church on track, both as an organization and me as a leader. And these guys really, I asked them to help me see blind spots in my leadership. I asked them to hear the pulse of our church. And I tell you, we are so blessed, to have men on this team that are so seasoned in their walk. That doesn't mean just old. But seriously, that guys that have been walking this journey and learning along the way and love to serve. So let me start with these guys. Got Keith Mills over there, if you stand up, Mike McCathern, John Greenwell, and John Evans. Those are our 4 elders. And then heading up our finance team, we got Jay Russell. And then working through our family ministry, we've got Caroline Moon, you stand up, and Alicia Starr. We've got Kim Thorpe and Meredith Mann and Scott Mann. Yep. At least you don't have to come up here. You don't have to say anything. You know, just nothing major. In our student ministry, we got Kier High and Julie Hill. We've got a whole team involved with them too. That's a start right there. And then we got with our production team, Tabitha High, who's normally up here. She's got a sick kid. In the back, we got Matthew Postel, and you know about sound guys, they love just to like have a spotlight on them. No, they like to hide. Matthew's back there. And how about, man, look at that, our sound stuff's moved. We had stuff donated, so we get sound moved back there. And then our creative director, my wife, Meg Vanderbilt, she's involved in a lot of the creative environments we create. With our host teams, Mike McCathern also doubles as heading up the host teams, but working from the outside in, Chuck Hill, who I guess he was up too late watching that game, and he's sick. I know, he's sick. He truly is sick. And then you got Jason Vallejo over here with our greeters, and where's Natalie at? Natalie Parker with our first-time guest, and Penny Turpin over here with our Next Steps team. And then we've got on the admin side, if you hear from people, they call or email you needing information, they are doing a tremendous help to me and our church. Please get back in touch with them quick. Marie Evans back here, and Debbie Arnett is hiding somewhere. I know, they really don't love the spotlight. And where's Debbie at? Debbie's right there, so you know who these ladies are. With our outreach team, which is going to come out of the ground here in the next couple months, we've got Karen Bates right here. Karen, stand up, and Jamie Wallace with our outreach team. Our volunteer coordinator, who is going to be working in connection with every ministry we have, get people plugged in, Wendy McCathern, right here in the middle. And then our building and grounds team, Michael Starr is out there somewhere, right there in the back. And honestly, I probably missed some people, but what I want you to see in this, you look around this room, we all got spots where we're going to be in the trenches at times. But I tell you what, when you go into a battle, you need great leaders. Because you know what, I can't be everywhere. And in fact, I can't do everything. These people that you're looking at right now are far more gifted at me in the areas they're in. So what God has given us, we haven't even launched yet. And what God has given us in these leaders and others throughout this room is an incredible team. It's phenomenal. A church plant should not have this strength of leadership. It's amazing what God has brought us. And you know what that tells me? It tells me He is preparing us for something big. He doesn't give us leadership capacity like this to be a small church that has 100 people in it. I don't know what His number is, but what God is doing is bringing people together that are excited about reaching people for Christ, and we create those environments and put leaders in place with team members around them. God's going to blow the doors off. All right, if you would give a hand to those leaders. Love them. Thank you, guys. All right, continuing then on the next blank, invest in the ministry Vision Church. Invest. And this is what we talked about a couple weeks ago about giving, living a life of generosity and sacrifice. And in fact, I want to challenge you and encourage you. There's something called being a percentage giver. That means that you don't just give a dollar amount, a $10 here, a $20 here. You make a decision as a family or as an individual to give a percentage of your income to the local church you're involved in. And if you're like, Matt, I can't trust you. You're a pastor. You're supposed to talk about money. So you know what? Then take God's challenge and give it to another church. His challenge is 10% of your overall income, your gross income. Take 10% and give it to His work in a local church. Biblically, it should be the church you're in. But if you're like, man, you want our money, you want a nicer car, a convertible or something like that, so trust me, I ain't making enough to get a convertible. But I got a truck. But anyways, give a percentage to the local church that you're a part of. But you know, it's bigger than that. You'll see the second piece of that. It's living a life of generosity and sacrifice. That there's something, if I tell you what, if you start your week off asking God to put someone in your path that you can be generous to, I tell you, He'll bring somebody. And it might cost you $5 or $10, Or, around Christmas, somebody came up to me and said, hey, this is for you guys. It was $100. I'm like, you know what? We needed that to meet a need. And God will do that through us if we are generous and sacrificial as a church. All right, and then the last one on there is invite other people to Vision. Invite other people here. And the next steps in that is build friendships, build relationships outside of our church with people far from God. You remember a couple weeks ago, Natalie is up here talking about going to beer club. And people are like, they mentioned beer club from the church stage? I say, yes, Nat. I specifically asked her to share that part of her story because she goes into environments where there are some people that are far from God, and she's building relationships so that she can then invite them to Vision. Now, we are actually, each week, we take up an offering, which gives us a chance to run our ministry, and I appreciate that our producer in the back let me know that I missed that on the on that part. So Jason, if you would, utilizing our greeter team and how we're going to do that, we'll take the offering, pass it on around. But inviting other people to Vision is so important. Because like we talked about a couple weeks ago, our primary evangelism strategy is invest and invite. That you would go into your school and invest in students. We'd go into our jobs and our neighborhoods and invest in people and invite them to Vision. Now what you'll find here at Vision is we will put tools in your hand to do it. So starting next week, you'll see something we call invite cards. And next week you'll be getting them. It says, starting on the 25th, a new series called Blueprint, helping find God's vision for your life. And we'll shape it in a way that you could take it and give it to somebody and say, hey, come out and try our church next week. Or we'll have stuff that showcases our kids' ministries or our other ministries that you can take and give to people and invite them to come to Vision. So those are our 5 things that we highly value here at Vision. Now, flipping back to Joshua. Joshua was sitting there the night before they were supposed to cross the Jordan River. And he was scared. I believe he was sitting there saying, okay, God, am I really hearing you right? Is this what you want us to do? Can we really take the land? How are we going to cross the river? What's going to happen with that? Because in Joshua chapter 3, you see him wake up in the morning and take a collection of people and say, we're going to go somewhere that only God could lead us. And in fact, we need him to lead us there. And they start marching toward this river. And I encourage you this week, read Joshua chapter 3 and see what happens in that. Actually, I'd tell you back up to Joshua chapter 1. And for those of you who are new this week, you'll normally have a takeaway that gives you next steps. And normally we'll have music, all these other elements. This is definitely rare. It's not every week you just come in just to listen to one person. But this week, I want you to read as far as you can in the book of Joshua. And when you get to chapter 3, think about how they felt when they marched up to the Jordan River. Because honestly, that's how me and Meg felt about a year ago. That we walked up to our Jordan River, and even in Joshua chapter 3, it gives you the extra little boost there that says, man, the Jordan River is at flood stage at that time of the year. And you know what? When you stand before your next faith step and you go, God, it's at flood stage. It's not a trickle. It's not a stream. It's the broad river. It's this river that's too far and too deep. How could we possibly cross that? And Joshua says, you know what? I don't know the how. I just know the what. And the what is to cross that river. And so we did. And we stepped out in faith and have had families rally up beside us to say, you know what? We're going to step out in faith too. And so as Joshua, you can read about this week, stepped in that river and experienced a miracle that they marked and measured with things like they took a rock. Each tribe took a rock with them and set those down and said, never forget what you saw. Never forget what you experienced that God did. So let me tell you one way we're going to mark that here at our church, because we're going to go through the covenant here in a minute. And again, there's totally no pressure, because I don't want to inspire you into crossing the Jordan River with us. But I do want to ask you to go with us if you feel like you're ready. Because what we're going to do is we're going to build something. And if you pull up the slide for the wall of change, this is something that's been beating in my heart for so long that I want to do. We're going to call it the Wall of Change. And I envision when we put this wall up here and have a couple sets of double doors, there's going to be a spot on this wall over here where we take some old planks and we're going to build a cross. And underneath it, well, above it, it's going to say Wall of Change. And underneath it, we're going to take these letters over here, which I'm explaining in a minute, that you're going to have a chance to mark. But on that Wall of Change, on that large cross, when someone in our church comes to Christ, and I'm not talking rededication and do this whatever, and they're feeling like, really, someone marks it down and they meet with someone and we find out as an adult or as a kid or as a student that they have accepted Jesus for the first time in their life and their eternity is changed, they will get a little piece of fabric where they'll put their thumbprint and their initials and that date, and they'll take it over there and they'll tack it on that cross. So that we as a church will be able to look over there and see 1 or 10 or hundreds of thumbprints on that cross. Some people say, why are you doing this? And we'll say, remember, lead people to Christ and help live out vision. Say, but okay, that's all great. What does that really mean? You say, look over there. That's what it means. That's my brother. That's my neighbor. That's the person in your family you've just been hoping they would try church again or try it for the first time ever. Or for your friend who has little kids, they say, do you not realize you're not even shaping them with eternity in mind? And they finally come. And maybe they're back there in Trailblazer and they come to Christ and our team meets with them and say, this is real. This little 7-year-old has accepted Jesus. They'll come in here, they'll put it on the cross. And you know what? Most likely, God's going to move us out of this place someday because we're going to outgrow it. And we'll take that down, and wherever we move, we'll put it up, and we'll just keep adding on to it. So the people say, oh, that's what Vision Church is about. They're not about mat or music or flashy stuff. That's it. The Wall of Change is it. And so today, when we finish, if you say, you know what? I do want to be an owner. I want to be a part of this thing. We have these 6 letters over here that spell vision. And these letters are about this big, and we got some Sharpies, and actually, this will be your chance when you turn in your covenant, either today, I'm going to repeat this Tuesday night for people who couldn't make it, or if you're like, you know what, I need to take it and think about it, pray about it, I'll get back to you. You got to get back to us by opening day. Because on opening day, we're putting up those 6 letters of vision underneath it, and they'll be covered over, secured, so that we'll say, you know what? The people who chose to cross the Jordan with us, they signed their name on there, and it's nothing glamorous. This isn't about us. That will be very subtle. We'll say, you know what? These are people that chose to cross the Jordan. And again, there's no pressure in that because I'm sure Joshua wasn't dragging people across the Jordan. He said, I'm going, and if you want to go with me, let's go grab what God promised us. So if you would, take a look at this ownership covenant. And the word covenant in itself is unique because this is not a contract. Because a contract actually becomes broken when someone on either side of the contract doesn't hold up their part. And you know what? God asked for something different. He asked for a different level of commitment. In fact, he asked for a surrender. That literally, if we were being taken over by an army, we say, okay, we surrender. You'd enter into something with them that you can't get out of it. So what I'm asking you to do is say, okay, God, you offered me in a relationship, a covenant that isn't based on how I'm going to act. It's based on what Jesus did. So I say to you guys, and say to us as a family first, are we ready to enter into a covenant that says, God, you called me to do something, and I'm going to go with you. And for this season of my life, it's a vision. And with this, you'll see, contact information and stuff about your kids and birth dates and all that. About halfway down, you'll see, have you accepted Jesus as your Savior? And again, that's for you to say yes. And if so, when? Doesn't have to be exact date, time, but me, August 1991. That's me. You've been baptized, yes or no, and when? And again, if you have not accepted Christ, in a moment, I'll pray, and you have a chance to accept Him. Then you go a little farther down, and you see again the mission. You're like, man, this mission keeps coming up. I said, you betcha it does, because we are not going to be distracted by what we do here. So again, you'll see the mission of our church to lead others to Christ, to help them live out God's vision for their life, And I basically ask you, do you agree to support, carry that out? Again, I don't want to inspire you into that, but say, yes, I will. And then you see the values. These are the 5 things we just went through. It'd be as simple as you saying, yes, yes, I will commit to do that. Yes, I'm going to find a place to serve. Yes, I'm going to commit to financially support. Yes, I'm going to invest in the lives of people, invite them. And say, okay, I understand what vision's about. Pretty clear. And then last, you see at the bottom, it says, as a follower of Jesus, I'm committed to the mission of Vision Church, realizing I'm taking on responsibilities, not gaining rights. Today, I enter into a covenant with Vision Church to be an owner. And I would love for you to go on that journey with me. And in fact, when you look at this owner's manual you take with you, and you'll see stuff about places to serve, you'll see all the values in there. It comes down to you feeling like God is calling you to be a part of what we're doing. And again, if you're ready to do that today, you can sign all that stuff, fill it out, and actually when we break in a minute, you'll be able to take it up here to this table, turn it in, and sign on those letters. If you go as a family, you'll be led to sign close together, something you can look at for years to come. And if you're like, wait, we just need to think about it, pray about it, that is totally fine. Even when you come back next Sunday, we'll touch on it briefly. You can have a chance to do that. But really after next Sunday, we're going to close that up and get it built and created with the people that said, we're going across the Jordan now. If you're like, man, I need more time. I need to grow in a couple months, that is totally fine. And then you just keep being a part of Vision, and when it's your time, join as an owner. That's great. Because everybody has a different next step and a different pace of time to take it. But if it's your day to join in as an owner of Vision, I would love to have you go on that journey with me, with my family, with our original 6 families, with our collection of people that want to be a part of change for eternity. So if you would, go ahead and bow your heads with me.